All right. While people file into the room, Will, I don't know if you've sat in on any of the other three sessions. You don't have to answer that question. I won't judge you either way. But so my question of the season is, it's September 26th. Pumpkins too early or not? Is it too early for pumpkins?
It's not necessarily too early for pumpkins, but at the risk of being controversial and alienating half of your audience, I don't like pumpkin pie.
Oh,
So I really don't have a strong feeling about pumpkins one way or the other. Just give me pecan pie instead.
oh well.
So
I mean, that's a given. I'm with you on that one. Any day.
yeah, okay.
Any
All
day.
right.
But what
All
about
right.
pumpkins on the porch?
Yeah, that's cool. I'm good with that.
All right.
So
All right. Have
yeah,
pumpkins out now. All
yeah.
right.
In case the kids misbehave, gotta have something to throw at them. I mean, wait, we're recording. I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't say that.
No, we wait until the end of October to do that when they're nice and
Yeah.
and sticky.
Here you
So,
go.
all right. I guess we actually are here to actually have a class or a session here. So I better get us kicked off. And so we have made it to the end of day one. This is session 4. So good afternoon and welcome to Insightful Accountants Future Forward Summit. My name is still Gary Dehart, and I am still the publisher of Insightful Accountant and host of the Future Forward Summit. So welcome again to session 4, the problem to solve, your key in technology. Our speaker is Will Hill of Will Hill Consults. He will introduce himself in just a moment after I do what I have to do, and that is some housekeeping items. So number one, we are offering CPE for this, and you guessed it, you have to be on the session for 50 minutes, 50 minutes. You have to answer at least 3 of the polling questions. We only have 4, so make sure and I really need you to answer them all. And then because the final poll question is basically saying, do you want us to send you a CPE certificate if you meet the criteria? That'll just help us narrow down who wants the certificate versus not. If you have any questions, we ask you to put them into, actually, Will, do you want the questions in the chat or in the Q&A panel?
Yeah, chat's fine.
You can put them in the chat then. This recording we are recording this, and it will be available on our YouTube channel within a couple of days. And we'll also send you a link to the YouTube channel in the follow-up email. We'll also send you a copy of the presentation in that same email. Once I turn this over to Will, I will put the link to YouTube in the chat. I will also put a copy of the presentation in the chat for you to use to follow along. And I do want to make sure we say thank you to our sponsor, Tax Exact. Will has a little bit he'll say about them momentarily. But with that said, again, thank you, Will, for being here. Thank you, Tax Exact, for sponsoring Future Forward.
All right, excellent. Thank you very much, Gary. I appreciate that. I am going to go ahead and pull up I'm going to pull up my PowerPoint if it's going to actually decide to show me my PowerPoint. Good times. What is going on here?
I can run it from here if need be.
You know, Gary, I thought it was going to let me pull mine up from my particular place. So if you want to, not sure here.
All right, let me get that opened up.
Yeah. So as Gary mentioned, thanks to Tax Exact for sponsoring this session. If you've not heard of Tax Exact and you're a firm that's processing a good number of 1040s and say, we could use some help with the review, either from a perspective of bandwidth of the top level reviewers or from an educational perspective as you try to build more confidence and competence in your up and coming staff and team members as they review 1040s. You may want to take a look at Tax Exact. I think you'll find it to be an intriguing solution to look at, something that using technology in a great way to help make you more efficient. So you can feel free to go ahead and check them out. Again, thank you to Tax Exact for being our sponsor today. And thank you to Gary for loading up my PowerPoint for today as well. And of course, that's going to be.
You need to advance it.
Yeah, go ahead and go to the next slide there as we take a look at the agenda for today. And I'm gonna send Gary a pair of crutches as a thank you for being my crutch in this presentation. But just a little bit about myself. My name is Will Hill. I have had the pleasure of working with tax accounting firms for well over 20 years. I'm gonna stop putting the number after the 2 pretty soon, so I make myself feel younger. I do live in Tennessee, have 3 crazy children. Most of that because one of their parents is kind of crazy, and it's not the good-looking one; it's the guy. So that'd be my fault for their craziness. But hey, what can we do? But I spent 20 plus years before I started my own business, working with accounting firms, doing software implementation, business process consulting through one of the major software vendors. And it's been an absolute pleasure to go out on my own and really get one-to-one helping firms, helping them move forward. And a large part of that is really trying to assess and understand what are they trying to solve for. So let's jump into the agenda here and look at what's coming up as we step forward into today. And we're going to spend some time talking about what do we mean by the problem to solve. And then since we're talking about analytics, advisory, AI, this is very tech related. And we're going to get into how do we take this method of the problem to solve and apply it to both current as well as future technology. And then as we wrap, we're going to get in on what's the impact to our business and to our clients as well. So we'll spend a little bit of time digging through. This is just kind of our roadmap as we go for today. As Gary mentioned, if you do have questions, then I want you to go ahead and put those in the chat. I'll be monitoring that as we go, and certainly taking some extra time during our poll times as well, just to make sure we're caught up on those particular chat questions. All right, let's dig in here. We're going to go to the next slide and get into what does it mean to have the problem to solve. Now, I saw this picture that's on your screen, the labyrinth maze, and let me tell you, as a kid, I was awful at labyrinth. Okay, labyrinth, I'm probably not even saying it right. I just didn't have the steady hand of trying to solve this problem. I could see the big picture, but man, the execution was tough on me. But let's talk about this problem to solve. First thing I want to mention is that it is real. Our problem to solve is real. So if we go ahead and put that first bullet up there, Gary, thank you. A lot of times we get trapped into thinking, all right, I want to go investigate technology, or technology companies do a great job of advertising and showing cool things that their tool can do. AI is now embedded with our tool. Look what we can do. My question comes back to, yes, but what problem to solve will occur within your firm? We've got to make sure that we have a real problem to solve. If we don't have a real problem to solve, we will struggle with measuring the impact, or we won't be able to measure we'll be able to measure the impact, but we're going to measure the wrong way because we don't have good focus. And we'll come to the word focus in a little while here. But if we don't truly have a problem to solve, how do we know if this new solution or the revised use of a current solution truly is being valued and adding value to what you're doing? See, there's a difference between just doing something new and doing something new that has impact, or doing something different versus doing something different that has impact. And we get pulled into the shiny object syndrome quite a bit. We've got to pull back and say, technology is great, it's everywhere, but I need a problem to solve, and it's got to be real. Now, the second bullet that we've got up on the screen, and I believe we should have the handouts going in here pretty soon. Someone asked about that in the chat, is that our problem to solve is supposed to be focused, right? Focused. Now, in the theme of this virtual conference, we're talking about analytics, advisory, and AI. Advisory is one that comes to mind. And so sometimes a firm might say, hey, we need to be more advisory. And they might look at that and say, this is our problem to solve. And I will say that that meets the first test. It may be a real problem to solve. But we'd have to sit on this next bullet here and really ask ourselves, is that focused enough? Are we truly focused? If we say, I want to be a better advisor to my clients, okay, but what does that mean? And if we cannot take our problem statement and really pinpoint it down into what we're truly trying to do and what the action looks like or what the outcome looks like, we're probably not focused enough. And so sometimes that focus comes into looking at, well, what set of my clients are we working on for this? Or perhaps that looks at, all right, what is the speed or efficiency with which we're doing a particular function? Or in the advisory example that I gave, perhaps it's a matter of what topic or real life scenario are we looking to advise on? So as we look to solve our problem, we need to be focused. This is one that we don't like to ask ourselves, is it focused enough? Because that takes a little bit of mental thought, and frankly, we're all just tired. Okay. So, but I want to challenge you. Once you think you have that problem to solve and you think it's focused, ask yourself that another time. Is this focused enough? Okay. Our third bullet on the problem to solve that we have in here is that it is measured. And I've alluded to this a little bit ago, but we've got to be able to say, what will success look like? What will success look like? We've got to have the target. Okay. I like to say that I've missed every target I didn't know I was aiming at, as a bit of a joke. But I think back to other times where I've set out to change things or introduced new programs at my prior company. And the biggest mistake I made was I never said, how do we know that it's successful? Because sometimes we get passionate about this problem that we're solving. We say, look, no, this is going to be good. I know I can do good things. We're going to have an impact. It'll be positive. Yeah, but what does that mean? Are we trying to drive revenue? How much revenue are we going to drive? Are we trying to solve a problem for clients? What would the impact for the client look like? Is it time savings for them? Is it after-tax net worth gain for them? What is it? How are we going to measure to truly know objectively it's been successful? Okay, so we need to make sure that we can measure this problem to solve. Now, the fourth bullet that's here on the problem to solve is that it certainly is going to impact the team and or client experience. If we're chasing after a problem to solve that only impacts you, we're going to have a problem. Now, if you're sitting here going, Will, I am the only employee of my firm, then I'm going to withdraw that statement and say, hey, then it impacts the whole team, right? 100%. But when we start looking and saying, hey, what's a problem I can solve? Or we see a problem, say, we got to solve this. I want to make sure there's going to be an impact to more than just me, or the impact is to the client experience. So if this is simply a problem that we're going to chase that impacts me and doesn't get outward to the client, and I can't tie a direct line to this change and to our client's experience, this is probably not worth our effort and energy. There are so many things we could do bigger, better, differently. There's so many new technologies that can enable and empower in different areas that we have to make sure that we choose our time capital well. Most of you don't have tons of extra time just hanging out and say, let's just go solve the smallest problem we can, and that'll be fun. And we'll have lots more of those to do later, right? We've got a lot of work to do already. And so I want to know, is this going to impact the whole team? And is this going to impact the client experience? And when I know that, then I'm going to be able to be confident in making this particular choice about this problem to solve. So don't just chase the shiny object. Make sure that you've got a problem to solve, and it's real, it's focused. You can measure what the impact could be, and that it has an impact to the whole team and or the client's experience. A quick story on this, I was talking to a firm owner, I believe he lived in Indiana, And he was mentioning a particular technology program that does a lot of marketing. I won't say the name because it's not fair to them. And he said, hey, my friends are all using it. Do you think I should too? Now, apart from the poor taste in humor jokes about just because your friends do drugs doesn't mean you should too. We then had a real question and said, hey, this is what I know this technology solves in terms of a problem. Do you have that problem with your clientele? And he paused for a moment and he goes, no, we really don't have a problem with that at all. And I said, then you can confidently move on and solve other problems. And yes, those other firms may love that technology, but it's solving a problem for them. If it's not going to solve a problem for you, it is time for you to go ahead and move on to other things in your focus. Well, let's go ahead and jump to the next slide, which I believe is actually our first poll question as we come up. So here is our first poll question. Look at me like double polling, the poll in Zoom, the poll on the slide, and all that kind of stuff. Where would you classify your biggest problem to solve? We got a few choices that are out there. And I could have put 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 choices just from things I've heard from firm owners, even in just these past couple of months. But certainly these are top of the list from things that I have seen.
Yeah, and we'll keep this open for about 5 more seconds, and then I'll share the results. If you need CPE, make sure you do go ahead and participate, and we'll close it out in about 3, 2, and 1.
Right. So it looks like internal processes is the leader, and then a few others. So I'll say this, you have internal processes. One of the other bullet slide was be focused. So what process? Is it around tax workflow? Is it around accounting, client data gathering, right? Let's be focused. When you think about, oh, we got some problems with internal processes, let's narrow in and really get which one that is as you attack that. Thank you, Gary, for your help with that poll. I appreciate that. So what does that mean for current technology? So in our journey here, we're going to assume now that we've identified your problem to solve. It's real, it's focused, you can measure success, certainly is impacting the team. What does that mean in terms of your look at current technology? And I start here because let's just face it, using what we have is usually faster, cheaper, and we have less obstacles. It doesn't mean it's always the right answer, but it should be the first place that we look. What is it that we already have? What do we do with what we have? Now, the first bullet point here is a critical one. So if we advance just one notch here for me, Gary, I want you to all watch for assumptions, okay? Now, the key for watching for assumptions is that you have to assume one thing to start, and that is that there are assumptions. Okay, so you've got an assumption somewhere about your current technology, about its usage, and about its capabilities. I have been in a number of firms where they have said to me, Will, and I'm thinking of one in particular that I was in last year. I said, Will, we've got a number of tools here. We feel like we have too many, but here are the ones we like and here are the ones we don't like. And as I was looking through those tools, it became clear that they had 3 tools added in, but the original tool they started with actually had all of the capabilities that they needed. So what I saw from that was we didn't do a good job at the first part of saying, can this tool accomplish the function? Can this tool accomplish the function? Sometimes if we're thinking about how do we get here, we've got to map this out, right? So as we look at our problem to solve, I want you to think of, and I should have thought of putting a diagram of this, but I didn't. So you can imagine it with me and then write it out if you'd like. But I want you to think about the client and about the firm. Draw a line right down the center of your paper. Look at me imagining and assuming you're using paper right now, or you even know what that is anymore. And on top of that line, say, hey, with this problem to solve, where do our clients interact with this problem? Might be a bunch of places, might be hardly any, depending on what the problem is. And then down below the line, where is it that our team interacts with this problem? As we kind of work left to right from a workflow perspective from our office. And so we're going to look through that, and then we're going to say, hey, what are the tools that we use that touch these different areas of the workflow? Here's where our portal comes in. Here's where the firm management is. Here's document management setting over here. And then kind of look and say, all right, what are we using for this? Are we missing things? Or things not set up and configured right? We have to really challenge ourselves and watch for those assumptions as we map out what we can do with a look at current technology. Okay, please watch for those assumptions. Now the next bullet down. I realize that I'm a little bit different here because I worked with a major software vendor for a lot of years. But you need to work with your software vendor, especially when you're working on current technology. I know it's a little bit scary, and sometimes they're the annoying big bad wolf that you don't like, but they're also the ones with the answers to the questions. Okay. And when you work with your vendors, I want to go back to a bullet from a different slide that said we need to be focused. Right? All too often, we don't get the right answers because we ask very poor questions. Let me say that again. All too often, we don't get the right answers because we ask very poor questions. Something like this, we don't want to maybe tip our hand to a vendor to let them know we're frustrated or we have other problems. We don't want to have them selling us 12 other things. That's the first thing sometimes that comes to someone's mind. And so we'll say, hey, this time and billing system, is there anything else it can do? And we just stay very generic instead of looking at it and really being focused and specific and saying, hey, our problem to solve is that we're getting into a subscription style billing relationship with our clients, and I need to manage on record credit cards and ACH accounts and have it automatically hit those bills and hit those accounts every month for a set amount, and then know when those contracts are expiring. Here's what I'm looking to do. I haven't seen a way so far inside of your billing system, Mr. and Mrs. Vendor, to do this. Is there something I'm missing? How do other firms accomplish this? Okay. So if I just said, hey, is there anything new lately about billing? Depends on who you talk to is what kind of answer you're going to get. But if I can focus my question in and be willing to be a little more transparent about what I'm trying to solve, then I'm going to get a more confident answer as we dig through. Yes, I know sometimes the transparency part with the vendors, you don't want to go there all the way, but I think it's necessary to truly vet if your current technology is going to be able to solve this particular problem that is sitting here in front of you. Now, let's go to the next bullet here, Gary, if you would, please. And I would say that you want to do this as well with your peers. Hey, let me find another firm that's got a similar technology stack. And I may not go ask technology-based questions, but I want to see how are they solving this problem? Hey, so this is where I come to my state society, other association that I'm part of, people that I meet at events, seminars, and say, hey, how are you solving for this problem? What are the technology pieces that you have around it? Now, if they are there with a very different technology stack than you may want to ask if they made a transition to that technology stack in order or as part of solving that problem, right? Just because someone is on tools 7, 5, and 4, and you're sitting over here on A, Q, and F, that doesn't mean you can't have the conversation. Perhaps they used to be on A and Q, and so they've got some insight into what the transition looked like and why that truly helped them solve the problem, right? But if you could find someone that's on some similar technology, or at least is prior in the past has been there, and be willing to ask that open, specific question, that transparent, specific question about the problem you're trying to solve, you're going to get a better answer. one of the things I love about working with accounting firms is the collaborative spirit that's there. And I certainly see it with those who are servicing the profession. And I see it with firms as I work with them. But there's nothing like seeing that with firms with one another. And all it takes is for one of the two parties just to start to be a little bit open. And I really see that openness come forward. Your peers want to help you. So be open with them as you dig in. Now, this comes with a warning label. And that's my next bullet, right? Especially when you're dealing with vendors. We might elicit a little bit of emotion through this, might uncover some interesting history that has feelings that are there. And I realize most people do not donut. I'm not even hungry. But a lot of people do not necessarily associate tax and accounting with emotion. All right. But boy, when it comes to technology and history, there's emotion there. All right. I know that there is. And the challenge here with the current tools is, let's say that you've got a firm management system that can truly accomplish what you need it to. But we had a false start 3 years ago. It wasn't set up right. The program maybe hadn't advanced all the way yet. And so now we're sitting here in a world where we've got team members who have been there for 3 years, assuming you have some team members still that have been there for 3 years, that go, nope, it didn't work, won't work. Maybe it made their life just miserable for a while. They're frustrated. We tend to harbor some of those frustrations towards the tools in an interesting way in this profession. And I've physically been inside of over 400 firms. I have seen this play out time and time again. And so there's nothing wrong with that. I think emotion's important because we understand what's valuable to people when we get into conversations that deal in emotion. And so I don't necessarily want to run and hide because people might get emotional. I just want to be aware of it. If I'm aware it's coming, I can handle the conversation in a way that prepares myself for it. And now I'm not going to get caught off guard with someone getting really angry. And then I can say, well, what about that made it really hard? What's different since then? I can start to ask some other questions to begin to peel away the emotion and get at where the real root of the issue is, and see if this technology has changed in such a way, or our workflow needs have changed in such a way that it's truly going to solve what we have. So I definitely want to see each firm really getting in and evaluating their current technology, not just changing for the sake of change, but seeing, is it really there? Can it do what we need it to do? All right, let's go ahead and jump to the next slide. As we do, I'm just checking chat to see if we have any other questions in the chat. No questions yet in the chat. All right. This is the time right now. If you haven't written down 2 specific problems to solve somewhere in your notes, I want you to do that. I don't think it's that hard to find a couple of them. If you say, oh, I don't know if they're focused enough, you can get there later. Write them down, okay? After you've written them down, I want you to write down the top 3 pieces of technology that touch each of those that you're currently using. Don't just write the type of program, but the exact technology. Hey, I'm using the cert tax. I am using, and it touches that. I am using Smart Vault for document management, and it touches that. Whatever those specific technology tools are, I want you to write them down so you've got it in there. Okay. I was going to have you do that in the last slide, and I forgot, so I had to do it right now. I told you to be open and transparent. I'm just trying to model that, guys. That's what I'm trying to do. All right. So we understand a little bit about what this means for current technology in terms of our problem to solve. But what on earth does this mean for future technology? So a couple things. We got to find options. We must find options. Sometimes we are so eager to solve a problem that we hear one option. We see that, wow, that's going to solve what I need. I'm just going to jump in and go. All right. I want you to find another option first. I want you to have at least At least two. I would prefer 3 or 4 choices that you have when you're looking at different and new technology, right? The options are out there. You've got to find them, you got to list them, okay? We need to have something to really compare things against. If we've got a very severe problem and we just compare the first option we see against the problem, it's always going to look good. And we're going to start, maybe it's going to cause us to have to compromise in another area. And we might be willing to do that because it looks better than our current problem. But what if we dig further? We find a second and third solution where there is not as much or there is no compromise. Well, now those are better choices. And so we've got to make sure we find options. We don't just run after the first thing that we see. Let's go to the next bullet there, Gary, if you would please. And I want you again to say, what is it that I'm precisely solving? Here's part of the challenge, I think, when it comes to looking at technology tools today, is many of them start in a focus, hey, we're going to solve a particular problem. And then as customers enjoy that particular solution, the company says, well, what else can we help them with while we're helping them with problem X? Well, we can help them with V and Y because those are right next to X, and we'll give some added benefits. Well, as you're going now to look at that technology that has 3 or 4 features as opposed to 1, you have to look through and say, it might have these other things, but is that truly the problem I'm solving? How do I kind of peel away some of the other beneficial pieces and make sure that I'm evaluating against the precision area of what I am trying to solve, right? I think that's one of the things that the sponsor for this event, Tax Exact, does really well, is they're very precise in what they're solving for 1040 tax review. So anyways, I don't want to turn it into a commercial, but I think it's one of the things they do well. And they're not also a document management system, also with another portal solution bolted on too, right? You see where I'm going, where solutions start to add things on that are good for existing customers and may help them, but that can create noise as you go to evaluate. So make sure you're focused in on the precise things that you're trying to solve for, not just the other pieces that, ooh, that would be fun too. If it'd be fun to put it to the side, we got to evaluate against the precise solutions. All right, next bullet. This one I think is important. This one I believe is probably the most point on the whole presentation. All right, verification from other firms. And I like this kind of social proof, right? For the most part, unless you know you are client number 1, you probably want to talk or have seen and felt it was trustworthy from another firm that they're actually using it, but not just using the tool, but using the tool to solve the problem that you are trying to solve. Okay. So I want to go out. I want to know that there's verification and social proof from other firms. Now, this could come because you talk to them. It could be that you've seen a couple of different webinars with different firms speaking. A lot of times I will serve as this for my clients and say, hey, now I've got another client of mine that is using this particular tool, so I know it works. Whether they want to talk to that other client is up to them, but I'm kind of that trusted partner that brings in some of the verification that tools that are out there and they're considering actually will fit the function as they go. But you want to get the verification. Don't just look at the company's website and go, yeah, it says it has this feature. It must solve that problem. Okay. It may have that feature, but it may not actually solve the problem. And you want to make sure that you're talking or have heard directly from firms, your peers, that it truly is solving the problem. I won't beat up the most bullet on here, but sometimes we get moving fast. We can forget it. I just want to challenge you not to forget it as you step forward. Let's go to the next bullet that's in here. And you have to choose to be the expert or not be the expert. Will, what on earth are you talking about there? Well, for me, I think about AI on this particular bullet, right? And if we look at some of the arc of all the AI conversation that's been out in the marketplace, at first it was, oh, well, you have to use these specific AI tools that are out here. And now we're seeing that arc back down into, hey, the technology providers are taking those capabilities and building them into their tools, right? And we have to start asking ourselves, do I feel like I want to be the expert or not? Do I want to take and say, here's a generative AI tool. I want to use it, and I want to use it to run against my document management system to perform X, Y, and Z. Well, then I've got to be the expert in the generative AI tool. Or do I want to talk to different document management system folks and say, hey, are you using generative AI to do these sort of things? Is that capability in your tool? And allowing me to not have to be the expert there, right? So when we think sometimes about going forward and that future technology as things grow, shift, and evolve, it isn't always about, oh, I've got to be the expert if it's new. It's a lot of times, do I really want to be an expert in that? Or kind of let a technology company be the expert, but I'm asking expertly crafted questions to ensure that those future pieces are coming as they were, and I'm raising, again, the specific case and being focused on the problem that I'm looking to solve. And I think sometimes we can fall into a trap of saying, I don't want to be the expert on AI, therefore I'm going to refuse to involve myself in any AI conversations at all. I think that's a big mistake. I think you can be in the conversation, ask the intelligent questions without having to be the expert that is there. Now, this goes in with the very last bullet that's on the screen, okay? And that is this. You need to lead, but you don't have to bleed. And what do I mean by that? Well, if you've been around technology quite a bit, those super early adopters, we call them being on the bleeding edge of technology. And if a firm is on the bleeding edge of technology, they're putting in things when they just come out and they're taking on pain. They know it's going to hurt. They know things aren't going to work perfectly and be right all the time, but they don't care. They want to be on the forefront. And let me assure you that there is a spot after bleeding and well before laggard, right? You can lead with technology to solve problems, but that doesn't mean you have to be on the bleeding edge of things, right? So I want to make sure that that was stated so that you don't feel any kind of pressure to say, ooh, I'm going to go where no one has gone before, right? This is not Star Trek. Some of you are laughing right now. I can sense it. But this is running an accounting firm, but we need to lead in the same way that we want to lead our clients, but it doesn't mean we have to be on the bleeding edge of technology, doing things that have never been done before. Hey, let's go to our next poll question. Gary, what do you think about that? I think Gary likes it because he put the poll question up. Just looking here at your challenge in evaluating new to your firm technology to solve problems. A couple choices there around clarity of the tool, testing and piloting solution, hearing from peers, staff resistance. Staff resistance. Never heard of such a thing, guys. That was a joke if you're not familiar with my sarcasm.
All right, we'll leave this open for about 5 more seconds. If you need the CPE, go ahead and participate in the poll. Then we will share the results. 3, 2, and 1.
Excellent, excellent. So testing and piloting the solution. I am not surprised that that is the leader in the clubhouse there, clarity of the tool and staff resistance coming jointly together in second. Yeah, testing and piloting the solution can be hard, right? We've really got to be intentional about that and say, hey, what are we testing versus what are we shifting and moving into? And we've got to be intentional and on purpose with our testing plan for a new solution. So excellent. Thank you for your participation in that. I appreciate that. So the impact on your business, if your problem to solve is focused, this also allows you to have targeted change, which I believe can help bring the team together. Right? Another way when I think about targeted change, and this, Gary, you're going to have to tell me if this is a true statement or not, but this could be the first ever the Patriot Mel Gibson quote in an accounting webinar, but aim small, miss small, right? When he's teaching his boys how to shoot, aim small, miss small. And I think about that when I think about targeted change and solving problems. How do we be precise? And if we're just a little bit off, we're still going to be very successful overall. If we have a shotgun approach and we're just a little bit off, it's hard to tell where we're off or what needs to be adjusted or if the impact was good enough, right? So we really need to have a targeted change. Now, I believe this brings the team together because when we're focused, that is valued. People are not resistant to change. You say, Will, you're lying to me. No, they're not resistant to change. Here's what people are resistant to. They're resistant to change without purpose. They're resistant to change without communication. And they are resistant to change when they have to go along the path blindfolded as opposed to seeing what's coming next. Okay? That's when people are resistant to change. So as we say, hey, we have a problem over here that we're going to solve. Let's, an example. Let's say that we've been wrestling with getting our 8879s signed, right? And so we say, oof, we need a better e-signature solution because we're calling people all over. We're using 2 or 3 or 4 different programs for e-signatures. Some people are dropping in and we have no tracking whatsoever. We can talk about the pain and everyone can nod their heads and go, yes, that is a pain. Okay, well, we're going to go solve that problem. We're going to target our change around solving that problem. And now we can come together because we all understand the pain that we're solving, right? I can go try to solve that same problem and just come back and say, hey, I've got this new tool. It's going to help with our clients and with taxes. Here we go. We got some new things for you to do. Everyone's like, whoa, wait a minute. What on earth is going on? But if we're targeting that change around a particular pain point that we've communicated, we're going to be able to bring the team together through that particular change. Let's go to the next bullet that's up here. I also believe this, and this may scare you, but solving problems surfaces more problems to solve from your team. Say, well, I don't really want more problems to solve. I know you don't want them. What I'm saying is you already have them. And as we solve problems that are pointed and focused, people are willing to acknowledge the other problems because they see the success of precision in change and go, oof, hey, we solved that. I also hate this part of my job over here. We've got a pain point here. Can we solve that one? So whether you knew it was a pain point or not is irrelevant. It's a pain point. And so I want those surfaced. I want that transparency from my team to tell us, look, here are the other problems we can solve stemming from success in solving targeted problems in the first area. Let's go to the next bullet here as we dig in. Focus allows for timelines. Focus allows for timelines. I could also have written focus allows for timeliness, but I'm going to put focus allows for timelines that's in here. Perhaps you've been part of a technology change in your firm that went on forever. Like, hey, we're still rolling out this particular new portal 12 months later. What on earth are we doing? Why? We've just become noise at that point. We've lost sight of purpose. But if we're solving specific problems, we're going to say, hey, we've got a timeline to go after this because we're solving one thing. We're not just bringing a solution for the sake of bringing a solution. And we can communicate a timeline and stay specific to that timeline. We've got a great opportunity to excel in that change. But if we're not focused in what we're trying to solve, it really becomes hard to narrow down the timeline. And we just kind of start moving forward slowly, and we're going to go into see what happens next mode, which is not a good recipe for success and change in the firm. The last bullet that I have up here after that one is that if we look at existing technologies first, we're going to keep capabilities of that technology front of mind, right? So perhaps we're looking for something in a current tool to solve a problem. And while we're looking there, we also say, hey, here's 3 other things we found that we're not using in this tool. Great. Now those capabilities are a little bit more front of mind, and we're getting a better potential return on our investment that is already existing. So these, I believe, are key impacts to your business by taking a targeted problem to solve approach. We've got another poll question because I spread them out poorly. That's the way I do it. So here it is, poll question number 3. Gary's pulling that up. I told you, accounting and emotion is here. Here's we got one on excitement, right? Like, I'm not sure if we get excited here very much, but perhaps you do. Gary, what would yours be for the insightful accountant if you had to answer this poll question for you?
So I couldn't find the mute button. Benefit of solving the problem. I'm going to take the 5th.
We only gave 4 options, not a 5th option.
No,
Can't choose the
no.
fifth.
I'm going to take the 5th Amendment.
Fine. All right.
I don't want to skew the answers. All right, we'll leave this
Fair.
open about 3 more seconds and we will wrap it up. So if you need the CPE, go ahead and participate. 3, 2, and 1.
We're looking for stress relief and client experience impact. Awesome. Very good. Very good. Thank you, folks, for participating in that poll question. Thank you very much. All right. Now, what's the impact on your clients? Now, I believe, first and foremost, that our focus on solving problems will naturally spill outward. So here's what I mean by that. If we've identified a problem to solve internally, the earlier poll question said internal workflow processes were the biggest area of problems to solve. Say we found one in there. I don't know, maybe Tax Exact is the solution, he says, since they're the sponsor. And we say, hey, we're going to solve a problem with this particular area. We get focused, we solve that problem on a good timeline, and we create that momentum. It's not just about problems internally. Now it becomes, a focused approach. Help to solve our own problem. How do we help solve other clients' problems as well? And so I believe this has a natural outward spill because it affects the way you think about running the business. And when you're talking to your clients, that's going to come through in how you think about their business as well. It just naturally will occur. And one of the themes around these couple of days here is around advisory. You want to be a better advisor to your clients. Look at how you're solving your own problems. You're going to be able to gain expertise in that and experiences and say, my clients have different problems to solve, but there was a process that we went through. There were certain things we learned about ourselves and tools and focus during this that I'm going to be able to bring to my clients and say, hey, I can help you in an advisory capacity with solving some of these problems. I know how to help you get focused. I know how to make sure that we're being measured as we go through on that particular one as well. So the focus to solve problems, I believe, naturally spills outward. Second bullet that's on here with this is that I think we also help minimize unintended consequences of change, right? Anytime we go through and put something new in place, things are going to shift and move. Real story from today, my wife and I working on a house plan because we've moved to Tennessee from Michigan. We're trying to get a house built and working on the house plan right now as we're living in a rental. And made an adjustment with, hey, let's put the stairs to upstairs over here. And we didn't pay enough attention right away. I haven't started digging yet, so we can catch this mistake. But it made the other room a little bit smaller. We thought we had communicated to move this other thing out, but we're looking at so many things. We missed a small piece. But if we keep our focus small, we should have minimize the unintended consequences of change. I think you can understand what we're looking at there. Third bullet on the screen, and Gary, go ahead and put the fourth one up there too. Clients want to grow and evolve, and they like doing business with like-minded businesses. Talk about your changes, right? Hey, we're continuing to move. If perhaps one of your changes around subscription-based client relationships and subscription billing, yeah, it's a change, but as you frame your changes to clients, say, hey, we're growing and evolving, the client goes, I need to grow and evolve my business too. I like that you're not stagnant. Okay, that mentality certainly is there. And then finally, the focus on problem solving helps drive communication clarity as a priority. We must be clear when things are in change, but guess what? We need to be clear all the time. And as we focus on communication clarity in our changes, it will also spill over to our other communications and help us continue to drive communication in a clear way. Gary, you got your fourth poll question. This is a record-setting time between poll questions. If you'd like your CPE, go ahead and answer yes for two reasons. One, you need to answer the poll questions to get CPE. And two, this is how the great folks at Insightful Accountant will go ahead and know who to send it out to and to not bother with your CPE. Shout out to those that don't need CPE and still answer the poll questions. I appreciate your participation today. Gary, is there anything else you wanted to say about this particular poll?
Nothing else on that one. So I suppose we can wrap it up unless I'm not sure if there were any questions.
Why don't we go ahead and go to my next slide here. See, that was a slide for questions. Haven't seen anything in the chat yet. We'll go to one more slide forward. And if something comes up while I wrap up, that's absolutely phenomenal. So Tammy, thanks for commenting that you didn't see the CPE pop up. Gary will get you taken care of there for that. I want to thank you guys for your time. I know what time of year it is. We're stuck between a couple of deadlines here, taking a little bit of a breather, maybe not. But to think a little bit about how you move forward. If you do not set time aside, pardon me, to look at how you're going to go forward, you're never going to get there. We're just going to keep having the same problems at a greater scale and be even further behind. Right. So I appreciate you taking that time. Thank you for sticking with, for listening. Love to connect with you on LinkedIn. You can scan that QR code there. Also, I have a partner of mine who is a partner at a CPA firm. We're doing a virtual event for a couple days in October. Gary's actually given a session there as well for us. It's called Team Building Mastery. We're working with how do you construct teams and from a roles, responsibilities perspective, and scan that QR code if you'd like a little more information or to register for that event as well. But other than that, I still have not seen any other deep questions come in through chat. So I appreciate your time. Gary, we hit our 50 minutes, which I know was one of the CPE requirements. And hopefully this has been valuable. So thank you, folks. And thank you, Gary, for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming. I've got a question for you. And that is just around, obviously, says it there over your shoulder there. I mean, you're a consultant, so you're in and out of firms, and you said that in your kickoff. What does that process typically look like if somebody's working with a consultant like yourself? And I'm sure I know that there's different levels that people can work with you, but if somebody said, you know what, I know I'm a mess, and how do I get my hands around it? And they want to bring someone in like yourself or someone else.
Yeah.
What does that process typically look like?
Yeah. So for me, I use a very simple gap analysis model. So I look at current state, we talk about future state, then we identify what are the gaps between the current state and future state, prioritize those, and then put action plans in place as to how we're going to tick those things off one at a time. So Sometimes that current state involves a very deep assessment. Maybe it's on site at the firm, walking through, looking at setup, talking to staff members about what are they doing, some of the analysis within there, and then having a real open conversation with the leadership of the firm to say, where do you want to go? What are you trying to do with this business overall? And really, we've got to think about that from an owner's success perspective. We've got to think about that from a client success perspective as well. And those are two important backdrops to know and marry together as we look at how do we prioritize the right changes that have to go with the firm.
Okay, great. And then I'm going to actually, it's still up there, information about your session that you're doing 25th, 26th of next month. One thing that I did not realize, and I kind of dawned on me to look at it this week. So the end of this month is fully the end of the third quarter. And so there's 13 weeks left starting October 1. And I know what I'm talking on in that session in October is around goal setting. And when I kind of had that realization today of, wow, this is it. I mean, I knew we're at the end of the year, at least we're in the fall, but it's 13 weeks and we're done. And don't forget, we have Christmas in there, and oh yeah, and there's Thanksgiving. So there's 13 weeks are slowly becoming more like 11, maybe even 10, right? To get some work done here at the end of the year. So keep that in mind. All right. So a couple of things before we end. One, I've mentioned this at other sessions, but in case you weren't in those, we made a couple of tweaks on our website that has caused some people not to be able to get to the website. So what you'll need to do is just clear your cache. It affected me in Google. It did not affect me in Firefox. So, and I don't use Edge. So go in, clear your cache, close the browser, open a new browser, and you should be able to get onto insightfulaccountant.com. Second thing is, in last session, Merv asked me to mention that we do have, we released some content on QuickBooks Desktop 24, which went live this morning. So if you still have desktop clients, or if you're still working with QuickBooks Desktop, go out there and check that out. And then also register for our QB Talks webinar, which will be, September was postponed because it's about QuickBooks Desktop 24. It wasn't released on the date that we thought it was going to be released. So we're actually going to be doing that session October the 4th, 2 o'clock, which is next Wednesday. I think that is all I had. I feel like I'm missing something, but I didn't write it down, so it must not be true. Will, thank you again. Everybody who took some time out today and has joined us for Future Forward, we certainly appreciate you registering and showing up for this. Thanks again to our sponsor, Tax Exact. We certainly appreciate their support, and we will hopefully see you all tomorrow morning at 11 for the session 1 of day 2. Thanks.